Alright, yes, first physics video, draft science style video that I'll be uploading to the new website in a new group and all of that crap. And I don't know whether there should be subcategories, but for now we'll just leave it as the way it is and hope for decent titling regime. Anyway, yeah, my internet's down. And coincidentally, it's right at the same time like all those people are going to go down, like Wikipedia and certain websites, to protest the government. And so it seems like some little hacker guys have decided for us that they're going to make us all protest with them. And there's a certain laughable irony, you know, in the fact that they apparently have control over our internet. These hacker guys apparently have the power to take away my internet. And they're complaining about somebody else having the power. I mean, there's a certain irony in this buffoonery that, you know, they're allowed to force me along to play the little let's protest the internet government thingy. Now you protest the government, you vote. Yeah, that's right. You vote for rational people. You don't vote for irrational ones. So, you know, why don't you just attack the Republicans, fucker? Yeah, I mean, really, why don't you go find the rich people and attack them, or just attack all the business sites? What are you attacking everybody out for, you fuckers? Yeah, it's just something slimy about this whole protesty thing. I mean, you make your argument, you either win it or you lose it, but you don't do this little tantrum thing. I'm going to close down the internet. Fuck you. I mean, yeah, assuming that's what the problem is, but it really can't be much else. My connection seems fine. See, its status says connected, and little bippily boopilies are going across and such. So, that can't be it. So, I don't know. So anyway, we'll do a physics video. That's what I've decided. So, here's my little image software. Hey, old picture of me. Try not to get too low. Yeah. Anyway, we'll do a new file here. And we can draw in here, I guess. It'd be better than drawing on paper, maybe. Or maybe it'll just entertain me. That's all that matters. I will be entertained. Alright, anyway, so these people who keep arguing about physics and the speed of light and whether you can go faster than the speed of light, which I say is bogus. Even in a local neighborhood, that you can transfer anything called information. No, anyway, all this other crap, you know, there's a wave function crap, all this, I'm sick of this crap. So anyway, you got this thing called the two-slit experiment, which is the foundation of a big ton of, what they call, their excuse. You know, they call it one of their experiments anyway. These proof. This is one of the pieces of proof. And it's the first proof. It's 100-year-old proof. And it's not a good proof. So until you fix this proof, talking to me all the other proof you have with all your other silly fucking experiments is kind of bogus. So until I am sure this experiment, well, I didn't draw it yet, is actually doing what you say it's doing, then fuck you. Alright, so we got this two-slit thing, right? So there's these two openings in a thing, and little photons get shot at it from over here, let's say, and they get boom, 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 and they go through this slit, or they go through, whoops, on that slit. And that's the game. So little things go through one of the other slits, and then they end up over here on a target, and the jig is they show up in a bar pattern. Okay, now the theory is that there's a bunch of, like, what is happening, like if this was a water wave, like if a big wave was coming into these slits, what would happen when they hit the two slits is that they'd create two new waves, really. That's what they'd be. They'd be just new waves would be created. And as those new waves came out, they would cross each other like that. So this is here's, and then here's the other. I'll do another color. So I'm a generous kind of guy. So here's the other wave, and you get what's called an interference problem thingy. You know, so where the waves collide, it's a +2, and where there's no wave, it's a +1 here in the middle. So that's the jig. So your empty spots are where the waves, the two valleys meet. So the valleys meet here, and the crests meet here. Oh, that didn't work. Why is white the background color? That's a silly background color. So this should work. Okay, so that's what you got. So the I don't care. All right, the battery's low. Blah blah blah. Nag nag nag. Anyway, okay. So my question is, now that I've totally annihilated my drawing. All right, so I'm going to make 2 new slits here, just for the sake of showing what I'm talking about. Alright, now these slits in the experiment are usually less than a hair thick. So not too many photons wide, maybe 100 or something. Something like that. Electrons, anyway. And then you got this middle target. Now, when regular waves come in here, what's happening is friction at this point here, at the obstacle point, is what basically creates the wave. Okay, so the water that doesn't hit anything goes right straight through at regular speed, but the water that hits the embankment causes drag, and so it's a type of friction, and so it slows down here at the ends, and that's what creates these new wave fronts. Now, what has to be explained is how this drag effect is affecting a single photon going through one or this one or this one, and how somehow drag on its wavefront of some kind is allowing it to essentially initiate a new wave and create the pattern. Now, my argument to these bastards who keep talking all this shit is what is the function of these 2 outer walls in the 2-slit experiment? I want you to explain what's the function of these 2 outer walls. What exactly do they do? And why is the 2-slit experiment totally dependent for these results on these slits being incredibly narrow? Why can't they be wider? And my argument is the reason is because the entire phenomenon over here is not being created by a photon being in 2 places at once, because they're making the argument that the photon actually is traveling through both slits as a wave, and then it somehow is reconfiguring itself in a location to be a solid point again. So it somehow splits in 2 and then goes back into 1 again. All its energy is dissipated in these waves, and then all of a sudden somehow it turns into 1 dot at the end, and somehow that dot will be proportional to the other dots that have landed. And that doesn't even make any sense, because theoretically the waves would always be identical coming through these 2 slits. They'd always have the same interference pattern. It would be an identical interference pattern for each photon or electron. And so that doesn't even make sense. But what does make sense is the argument that what's critical about these 2 external slits is that what's actually happening is the photon is refracting off of the slit or being refracted by the slit. So it's either being bent to this outside location or it's being reflected to an interior location. And that's happening on both slits, and on the interior slit they can't reflect, but they can be refracted internally. So they can be pushed in. And that only happens by a certain degree percentage that's always consistent. So because the makeup of the quanta, it will only deflect from a certain obstacle. So if you have an obstacle of a consistent mass, because of the orbits, because of the energy levels, or whatever you want to call it, the magnetic effects between these things of fixed sizes, and because this diameter would be consistent of how much slit material there was, or density, or some other aspect, that what's happening is as the photon travels, it's refracting at specific angles. So I would liken it to, of degree. And it's because of those specific angles that you're getting the bar pattern. Because it's a specific amount of deflection or diffraction. And so I would liken it to what happens in a prism where, a full spectrum light source goes in. I could just add colors so you'd understand it'd be full spectrum, but that's close enough. And, the prism separates out the, different light sources. It basically filters them through refraction. And that's what I would argue is taking place, and that's what the function of these outside slits are. Otherwise, I'd like these people to explain to me how exactly, isn't it coincidental that a mechanical thing that happens in water or in a liquid where there is drag or friction creates a wave pattern, and that somehow you're creating a duplicate pattern with sources that you can't explain what that friction would be, and how that friction would, how it could possibly create an interference pattern when the wave is produced one photon at a time, coming from what would be obviously different angles of interaction, which would mean that the wave would actually have a different focal length. So how could you possibly even have a consistent a consistent interference pattern when the waves aren't going to be as consistent as these waves, because they're going to be individual electrons. And the individual electrons will come in at a different angle, creating a different wave. One would assume the wave at one side or the other would be stronger than the other or something. There can't be a complete balance of the wave when the photon or electron is coming in and just barely hits this edge of this, as it comes out of the gun. It's a scatter gun, remember that. Right? The gun is intended to randomly shoot electrons in the area of this target. Okay, it's not a precise gun that shoots through a slit or through that slit. It's not precise, so you're not guaranteed that you went through the slit. This is a flawed experiment. This is a fundamentally flawed, sloppy, stupid experiment. And this is a stupid explanation that the photon has somehow split in two, gone through both slits, and then reformed itself at the other side. That is a preposterous explanation of this experiment. You have to do a lot better than this. So this is a 100-year-old physics experiment that is basically the foundation of quantum wave mechanics bullshit theory. Although the wave function in quantum mechanics is about probability and has nothing to do with this nonsense. But let's just understand, they keep using words like wave, all right, to describe what's taking place. And it's not a classical wave. It's not produced in a classical manner. It's totally inappropriate to be using this language. Something else is going on, and that something else wouldn't need these exterior obstacles if it doesn't have something to do with friction. And so you explain the friction on one particle on a wave function. Explain that to me. And until you do that, I don't want to hear about what you've proven. Prove this first. Prove that this makes sense. And then talk to me about what else you've proven. Yeah. It's really irritating. So anyway, should I go into my other crap? Yeah, the other crap about physics. I'll need a new screen if I do. Well, there is a new screen, but I don't know if there's much else I want to say. Yeah, well, my theory is that the whole universe is something. And so I'm still thinking on the gravity thing, like we're just not getting it. There is actually a substance that is, there's lots of ways something can pull something in. And I guess, let me see if I can draw it without looking stupid. But, you can have this idea of a... What the hell? My color pooped out again. I'll try green. A screw, as it spins, or spring. Yeah, well, it was okay, but then it's falling apart. So the idea of a spring, it can catch something, and it can pull it. So if the spring is turning, it's going to pull the thing in. And so you'd almost think of gravity as being that kind of an effect, where it just keeps pulling something in. There's a pressure constantly pulling in that compensates for the centrifugal pressure pushing out. But there's probably some better way to do it. I mean, I could say a nucleus of an atom was a circle. So, I mean, I think it's important to do these descriptions and models. I wish people would do that. And let's say that an electron did have a tail kind of, let's just even say it was a string. All right, say if it was just a string of quanta. And it could be a very long string. And what happens is they can be of different lengths, these strings. So the string could be this long, could be this long, could be this long, and all three of those could still be electrons. What if the string basically is just flies, like here's an electron coming towards an atom, and what happens is it basically hooks. You know, it flies in, and it hooks, one end of the string hooks onto the nucleus. And that's what, so the whole thing is still spinning. You still have all the quanta, and it's hooked, it's caught on the nucleus, it catches. And so everything's still moving at the speed of light, everything's still doing all of its quanta type thing, and it's just hooked. And then it just breaks off. If a piece breaks off, that's a photon of light. If it's a small enough piece. So the small pieces might be photon, and a really tiny piece might be a gamma ray or something. And if you have enough of them, they'd be high energy because they'd be really small, so they can smash things really easy because they're small. If there's enough of them, because they get inside of things. Big things bounce off. Everything's set up was basically a filter. And so little things will get through the filter, and they'll do damage to the interior, to the nucleus, and crack it, break it, and then the whole thing falls apart. But anyway, there's lots of ways, I think, to visualize what's taking place. But my basic argument is that even this nucleus could just be a string. Okay, it's just spinning, and it's caught up in there, and it's just made up of quanta. So in a way, we could find a way to just mechanically turn every bit of the universe into just one little thing that has an ability to attach to another piece of itself, and is always moving at the speed of light. So all it really has is momentum. That all matter is made up of the speed of light. It's all quanta moving at the speed of light. And what is happening in the physical universe is these chains of quanta are created, and they connect into atoms, which are like a couple. That would be hydrogen, one electron, and then you'd have helium, would have two of these little strings tied up on it, and you could go on and so on and so on and so on. It's also two pieces to the nucleus to hold it together. It's got to have a more dense nucleus to keep it together. But I haven't gotten all the wrapping and tying thing all figured out. But I mean, this is just one example of a way to diagram it. I also like the diagram of the chain being long enough where two atoms would be held together, because the electron string itself would be long enough to do both orbits. And that's why the bond would be strong, is because it's one string. And the only way to separate these two is to break the quantum bonds. To break a quanta bond would be the only way to separate these two atoms, these two nucleuses now. They're tied together until you break this bond. But anyway, I think there's ways of diagramming this shit and not having to do all this abstract, fifth-dimensional, bibble-babble, nonsense, wave function crap shit. I think there's probably a simpler mechanics than what they're alluding to. You don't need bosons and trosons and phosons and glosons and all this other crap. Those are just descriptions of the same thing, functioning different. So I mean, here you have one tied, and here you have one looped. I mean, these could be different. These could be identical things, just in different arrangements. Just as graphite and a diamond are the same element, just in a different form. Yeah, something like that. So anyway, It's enough of a starter. So yeah, just don't talk to me about what you got as proof. What all of physics, what physicists have proved. Till the physicists do some good proofs on this stupid 2-slit experiment. Till they show me the results of when they actually do what I've suggested, which is make shields for the slits. All right, just put shields in front of them. Then you know what slit the damn thing went through. Widen the gap and tell me exactly what the difference is in terms of the interference pattern. What exactly happens to the interference pattern as you widen these slits or you narrow these slits? From those facts, from those experiments, we will be able to deduce whether this is truly a wave interference pattern or whether this is a refraction pattern. Let's do that, fuckers. It's really annoying. I mean, damn, I'm not asking for Jesus's passport. I'm just asking for some kind of real, some sort of, real evidence. Not just this crap where you just keep saying 2-slit experiment and it really isn't anything. It doesn't mean a damn thing. You've drawn expansive conclusions based on not much of an experiment. Enough said. See if the old internet's working. This really is going to be annoying if they're going to drag this out for an hour. I mean, what about like eBay and stuff? So all those people lose their money and all this crap and waste. So again, so you're just going to waste maybe an hour's worth of internet, all that business lost, all that transactions not done, emails lost, all that shit fucked up. Maybe that's what, $500 million you just pissed away on bullshit, on your stupid little, we'll show you we don't want the government controlling the internet. No, we want these 7 hackers controlling it. Fuck you guys. Fucking, they ought to just find the assholes who did this, and yeah, fuck you fellas. The internet's not yours to play with. It's not your protest tool, you fucking cunts. Damn, it really is irritating.